person who sent me this story asked me to call her Jess. She's in her mid-30s, lives in Colorado now, and she said before she wrote any of this down, she spent about a week deciding whether the story was hers to tell. Not because she was worried about her own privacy, she was fine with sharing it, but because part of what happened involved someone else, someone she loved, and she wasn't sure it was fair to put that person's experience into words without being asked to. She said she decided to share it anyway because the alternative was carrying it alone, and she's been carrying it alone for 3 years. Jess has a younger brother. She calls him Cole in her message. Cole is in his late 20s, and at the time this happened, he was living with Jess temporarily. He'd gone through a rough stretch, lost a job, needed somewhere to land for a few months while he got back on his feet. Jess had a 2-bedroom house in a small city in the Midwest. She had the space. She said yes without hesitating because that's what you do for family. She said Cole had always been a sleepwalker. Not severely, not the dramatic movie version of sleepwalking where someone navigates complex environments with their eyes open and no memory of it. Just the low-level kind that a lot of people have, especially under stress. He'd done it as a kid. Their parents had mentioned it a few times. Occasionally, as an adult, during high-stress periods, he'd have an episode, he'd get up, move around, sometimes say something that didn't make sense, and go back to bed with no memory of it in the morning. His previous roommates had mentioned it. It was just a thing about Cole. Nothing scary. Nothing that required medical attention, according to the doctor he'd seen about it years ago. Just something his brain did sometimes when he was stressed and sleeping. Jess knew about it going in. She said it didn't concern her. It concerned her by the 3rd week. The first episode happened on a Wednesday night about 18 days after Cole moved in. Jess was a light sleeper, and she heard him before she saw him. The sound of his bedroom door opening, footsteps in the hallway, the particular soft shuffle of someone moving in the dark without full coordination. She'd been half asleep, and the sounds brought her the rest of the way awake. She got up and looked into the hallway. Cole was standing at the end of it near the front door, just standing there facing the door in the dark. She said he was completely still, not reaching for the door, not doing anything, just standing facing it. She called his name softly. You're not supposed to startle sleepwalkers, she knew that. He didn't respond. She walked down the hallway to him, took his arm gently, turned him around, and walked him back to his room. He went without resistance, the way sleepwalkers do, compliant, unaware. She got him back into bed and he settled immediately. In the morning, he had no memory of it. She mentioned it to him over coffee. He was embarrassed the way he always was when it came up. He said sorry. He'd been stressed about some job applications. That was probably what triggered it. She said it was fine. She wasn't bothered. She just wanted him to know. The second episode happened 4 nights later. Same basic shape. She heard him in the hallway, got up, found him standing near the front door facing it. She walked him back to bed. The third episode was where things started to feel different. She heard him again a week after the second episode. Got up, went into the hallway. He wasn't at the front door this time. He was standing in the middle of the hallway, facing her bedroom door, which was where she'd just come from. He was facing the closed door of her bedroom, standing about 3 feet from it, still and silent in the dark. She said standing there, looking at her brother facing her closed bedroom door in the middle of the night, was the first moment something in her responded to the situation as wrong rather than just inconvenient. She said it was probably nothing. Sleepwalkers move in unpredictable patterns. There was no reason to think he'd been standing there long, or that him facing that particular door meant anything at all. She called his name, gently the way she always did. He turned. Not all at once, slowly, the way a sleepwalker turns when they respond to a sound, imprecise and heavy. He turned and faced her, and she walked him back to his room. But before she walked him back, in the 2 or 3 seconds between him turning to face her and her reaching for his arm, she saw his eyes. Open. She said she knew sleepwalkers sometimes had their eyes open. She'd read about it. She knew it was a thing. But knowing it as a fact and seeing it in her hallway at 2 a.m. were two different experiences. His eyes were open and they were looking in her direction, but they were not seeing her. She said it was the most accurate description she could give. The eyes were functional but unoccupied, like the lights were on and no one was home. She walked him to his room. She went back to bed. She did not sleep well. She brought it up with him more carefully the next morning. Not alarmed, she didn't want to alarm him, but thorough. She asked how his sleep felt, whether he felt rested, whether there was anything going on beyond the job stress. He said he felt okay, a little tired maybe. He said he appreciated her looking out for him. She asked if he'd ever sleepwalked toward another person's room before. He thought about it and said not that he knew of. He said usually when roommates had described his episodes, it was moving toward the front door or the kitchen. She filed that away and didn't say more about it. The fourth episode happened 3 nights after that, and it was the one that changed things permanently. She woke up not to sounds in the hallway, but to something else. A feeling, that specific feeling of not being alone in a space where you should be alone. She was a light sleeper and she was good at waking up to sounds, but this wasn't a sound that woke her. It was something else. Presence. She opened her eyes. Cole was in her bedroom. He was standing at the foot of her bed, facing her. Still. In the dark, barely visible, just the shape of him in the ambient light from the window, but she could see enough to know it was him, and to know he was standing at the foot of her bed looking at her while she slept. Or looking at where she slept, the eyes open and unoccupied. She knew that now. She said she lay completely still for a moment. Her heart was going fast, but she was thinking clearly, and she was thinking, he's asleep. He's not here intentionally. He doesn't know where he is or what he's doing. There is nothing threatening about your sleeping brother standing at the foot of your bed. She said she repeated that to herself twice. Then she said his name. He didn't move. She said his name again, slightly louder. He turned his head. Not toward her. Not in the direction of her voice. He turned his head to the right, toward the corner of the room, the empty corner, and he looked at it. She said she looked at the corner too, involuntarily. There was nothing there, the usual corner of a bedroom, shadow, the edge of her dresser. Nothing. She looked back at Cole. He was still looking at the corner. She got up slowly. She moved around the bed toward him, keeping her eyes on him, and she reached for his arm and said his name again, firmly. He turned to face her when she touched his arm. Those open, absent eyes. She walked him out of her bedroom, down the hallway, into his room. She got him into bed. She pulled his door mostly closed. Then she stood in the hallway for a long moment before going back to her room. She said she stopped at her own bedroom doorway and looked at the corner of the room that Cole had been looking at. The empty corner. She stood there looking at it for probably 30 seconds. She doesn't know what she was expecting to see. There was nothing there. There was never anything there. She went to bed and left her bedroom door open so she would hear Cole in the hallway if he got up again. She did not sleep. In the morning, she told Cole everything. Not the edited, careful version she'd been giving him. Everything. The progression of the episodes. The open eyes. Him in her bedroom. The way he'd turned to look at the corner. She said she watched his face while she told him, and he went from embarrassed to genuinely disturbed. He said he had no memory of any of it. Not one episode. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't know what to do with any of it. She said she thought he should see a doctor. Not the same doctor he'd seen years ago who'd told him it was benign. She thought he should see someone who specialized in sleep disorders, get a proper evaluation, maybe do a sleep study. He agreed immediately. He said he'd make an appointment that week. She also asked him something she said she felt a little strange asking. She asked if anything had changed recently. Not the job stuff, she knew about that. Anything else. Anything that had started around the time the episodes started or just before. Cole thought about it for a moment. Then he said there was one thing, though he didn't think it was relevant. He said about a month ago, just before he'd moved in with Jess, he'd had a recurring dream that had since stopped. He said he'd had it 4 or 5 times over the course of about 2 weeks, and then it had gone away. He said in the dream he was standing in a room he didn't recognize, and there was someone else in the room, standing in the corner. He said he could never see who it was. They were just standing in the corner with their back to him, and in the dream he understood, not because anyone told him, just the way you understand things in dreams, that he was not supposed to look at them directly. He said the dream always ended the same way. The figure in the corner would slowly begin to turn around, and he would wake up before it finished turning. Jess said she listened to this and didn't say anything for a moment. Then she asked him which corner. He looked at her. He said he didn't know what she meant. She said in the dream, which corner of the room was the figure standing in? He thought about it. He said the far right corner. Why? She didn't answer him right away. She was thinking about her bedroom, about Cole standing at the foot of her bed in the dark, turning his head to the right, about the corner he'd been looking at. She said she told him it was nothing. She said she didn't want to connect it out loud because connecting it out loud would make it a thing she had to deal with, and she wasn't ready for that. Cole saw a sleep specialist about 2 weeks later. The specialist scheduled him for a sleep study. The study showed elevated activity consistent with a parasomnia disorder, essentially confirming the sleepwalking, giving it a clinical framework, suggesting some medication options and sleep hygiene adjustments. The specialist said stress was likely the primary trigger, and that with management it should improve. Clinical, reasonable, treatable. Cole started on a low-dose medication and made some adjustments to his sleep schedule. The episodes stopped. 4 weeks after the medication started, nothing had happened. 6 weeks, nothing. By the time Cole moved into his own place, about 3 months after the sleep study, he'd had no further episodes at all. Jess said the medical explanation was real, and she believes it. She believes the sleepwalking had a genuine clinical basis, and that the medication addressed it, and that Cole is better now. She's not arguing against the science. She said the science explains the sleepwalking. It doesn't explain the corner. Because here's the thing, Jess told me that she said she's never told Cole and never plans to. About a week after that last episode, the one where she found Cole in her room looking at the corner, Jess was getting ready for bed. She was turning off lights, doing the last routine things before sleep. She went into her bedroom and crossed to the window to close the curtain. She passed the corner on the way. And she stopped. She said she stopped because she felt something she didn't have a name for. Not cold. People always say cold in these stories, and she said it wasn't cold. It was more like a change in density. Like the air in that specific corner of the room was different from the air 2 feet to the left of it. Present in a way that air isn't usually present. She stood next to the corner and felt that, and then she took a step back. And she looked at it. Just the corner, wall meeting wall, shadow, normal. But she said while she was looking at it, she had a thought that arrived fully formed and from nowhere, the way certain thoughts do when they don't feel like yours. The thought was, it's not here right now. Not it doesn't exist. Not you're imagining things. Not there's nothing there. It's not here right now. The implication being that there was a here. That here was a place something came to. She moved out of the corner of the room fast and closed the curtain and turned on every light in the bedroom and did not sleep in that room that night. She slept on the couch. She didn't tell Cole. She said 2 weeks later, she rearranged her bedroom furniture. She moved her bed to the opposite wall and she put her dresser in the corner. Heavy, solid, filling the space completely. She said she hasn't felt that density in the air again since she moved the dresser there. She said she doesn't know if that means anything or if she's just made herself feel better by filling a corner with furniture. She said Cole is doing well. New apartment, sleeping fine, no episodes. He doesn't know about the corner. She talks to him every few days and he sounds like himself and she's glad. She said the dream he described, the figure standing in the corner. The understanding that you weren't supposed to look at it directly, the figure slowly beginning to turn. She said that dream has never fully left her mind since he told her about it. She said she thinks about the version of events where Cole had that dream and then started sleepwalking toward corners, where his sleeping mind was going somewhere specific, looking for something specific, guided by whatever residue that dream left behind. She said she thinks about what it means that whatever he was looking for, or whatever was drawing him, led him eventually into her room, to the foot of her bed, and then directed his gaze, even in sleep, to that specific corner. She said she wonders if it found what it was looking for. She wonders if it's still there. She said she tries not to think about the dresser in the corner, about what it would look like if she moved it. Whether the corner would just be a corner, or whether something would be standing in it, facing the wall, waiting to be seen. That's Jess's story. Sleepwalking is genuinely common. Estimates suggest somewhere between 1 and 15% of the population experiences it at some point, and for most people it's exactly what the doctors say it is. A benign parasomnia. A brain that doesn't fully transition out of certain sleep stages. Treatable, manageable, nothing to be afraid of. Most of the time, that's all it is. But occasionally, someone sends me a story like this one, where the clinical explanation accounts for most of it but not quite all of it. Where the sleepwalker isn't just wandering, they're going somewhere. Looking for something. Being drawn toward a specific point in a specific room with a consistency and a purpose that a misfiring brain doesn't fully account for. Cole's dream ended before the figure in the corner finished turning around. Jess thinks about that. She thinks about what Cole's sleeping mind was moving toward on those nights. What his open, absent, unoccupied eyes were looking for in that corner at 2 in the morning. She put a dresser there. She hopes that's enough.